Welcome to the Wizards of Ecom, your no-fluff playbook for online success. Each episode is fully packed with actionable tactics you can implement in your business right now. Take your life to a higher level and excel in your online success. It's time to work on you and your business. Let's do this. Welcome back to the Wizards of Ecom. My name is Carlos Alvarez. I'll be your host for the show. On today's episode, I have an amazing guest on the show, the founder of AMZ Insiders, a frequent speaker at Amazon conferences and other entrepreneurial events, Jamie Davidson. Welcome to the show, Jamie.
Thank you, Carlos. Great to be here. Great to connect and great to see you again, man.
Absolutely. I feel like our first official connection, because our paths have crossed a lot over the last decade, was was it Dima's event? Was it Dima's event at Rise?
In Orlando? Yeah. Rise event. Yeah.
I saw you. You're like one of the few people I don't have muted on social media. So like you jump on these Facebook lives that you do, and I would always pop in at the very beginning, like before everybody started pouring in, and I'd try to drop like a thumbs up. So when I saw you at that conference, I was like, yes, he cannot run from me. I get to like ask him all the questions I want. Right.
Yeah. Feelings mutual. So yeah, it's always cool to connect. I said all the online stuff's awesome because it's scalable, but then there's nothing like getting together in person and kind of gravitating to people that you resonate with. So yeah, I really enjoyed meeting up the last couple of times.
100%. Likewise. I invited you on the show so we could talk about something that I don't know if you've talked about this before, but something you and I think don't get asked enough. I think when we get invited to speak somewhere, or I do an event, or you're teaching, everyone wants to know about what are your gross numbers and what are all these wins. Nobody, I wish somebody would just lead off and say, what's your worst failure in this business? Because I'm convinced to do what we do, you have to fail or fail forward. So the show today, I can't think of anyone better than you and I to talk about failures. You and I are both mega sellers. We've been selling on Amazon for, I don't know how long you've been selling on it. How long have you been selling on Amazon?
About 10 years now.
Yeah. Which is a bazillion years in Amazon years. And along the way, again, you and I, I'm sure have racked up our share of, failures or setbacks. I don't even like the word failure, but we've racked up our share of learning experiences in the trenches. So I definitely know I have. Sort of the layout of this show, I want to go back and forth with you. I don't know if this turns into like one of those fishing stories, like you say one and then I try to top it.
Yeah.
Right. But we can share some failures, and I want people listening to this to know when they're dealing with something or they fail on something and be like, this is nothing compared to what Jamie went through. And if this is how Jamie dealt with that, maybe different scenario, but I can apply what Jamie did to that scenario. And he came out shining. I can do that too, instead of folding. I don't like folding. So, all right. Before completely kicking this off, it's your first time on the show. People listening to the show, if you frequent Clubhouse, it's impossible, I think, at this point not to have run across Jamie. Are you like an ambassador of Clubhouse or something at this point?
Definitely not. I just had connected with some other entrepreneurs early on the platform, relatively early when it got really hot. And there's something about I enjoy it just because it's pretty simplistic that you don't have to get dressed up. You can be anywhere. You can participate from anywhere. And so that just like the podcasts, in some ways it's kind of like a live podcast. So yeah, no, I think it's unique. It's still evolving. I think different platforms will pop up, but audio is definitely something that I think for anyone is interesting, both whether you're consuming or whether, you want to help build your own brand or increase your I've met a lot of people at the events, that know through Clubhouse, and then just like you and I through other mediums, you meet in person. So yeah, no, it's I enjoy it.
I love how humble you were on that too. I just connected with some entrepreneurs, and I mean, I've seen some of the people you're connected with and like rubbing Clubhouse, elbows with on Clubhouse. And these are like the who's who in the entrepreneurial scene. So
it's a good group. So, I mean, it's just like the thing I think, like, you and I are both in Amazon, and like I said, I've listened to your podcast and when you've been guests, and, always learn things. To me, the entrepreneur space, Amazon there's also kind of a bigger umbrella just in the entrepreneurship space where, you can definitely learn from other people and learn. I mean, there's definitely people that are better marketers than me and better this. So yeah, absolutely. I try to connect and tie in, and yeah, it's cool.
All right. I'm going to try to like focus and not keep rabbit holing here, because I feel like just the way you approach networking and building those contacts could be an amazing topic in and of itself. Let's get to it. So
yeah,
when you said 10 years ago, but like when did you begin selling, and how far along were you in selling on Amazon? Let's start with Amazon. Like, how far along were you on selling with Amazon before you, I guess, were dealt your first, let's call epic failure? And like, could you share that?
Yeah, sure. So, the short story version is just, I'm here in Atlanta, Georgia. It was in 2011. My next door neighbor, Jason, who's native Chinese, was selling out of his garage. He was doing basically retail arbitrage more. Well, he was an IT consultant. I was a chief operating officer of this private equity backed education, blah, 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 corporate gig that was going well. And, I was shocked at how much I thought it was just a hobby, like an eBay, selling some side stuff. But he actually started originally to replace his wife's income when she was staying home for about $90K. Quickly realized in the cell phone case opportunity at that time, this was something bigger than that. So we had spent a lot of time. We were buddies, next door neighbors. And I basically made an investment in the business because I couldn't go full time right away. I was making about $400,000, maybe a little more certain years at the time with my corporate gig and with a family. But I recognized this was like a really unique opportunity. And he pitched me about the beauty of entrepreneurship because I never really had done it. So we all have unique stories, but that is originally how I got into it. But we quickly in, without going through all the details, but we got to like 5 million. We got to about $8 million in a pretty short period of time, like within a little over a year in the space. But with that growth, we got to 8 million and 20 million, and it started building early on. I think we were at 20 million. We did an acquisition of another brand, which is actually, they're equal. We have two huge brands in the cell phone accessory space. And one of those brands, I think, was about a $5 million brand when we were at 20 million. And we bought them, brought them in as a partner. I was going to lead into, so I think the question is kind of where you hit the first big ones. And, what I would say along the line for anybody out there is, this is, I think, true for any in entrepreneurship, is that you're always, dealing with issues and challenges and things getting effed up. We're always dealing with that. I think, probably, I'm quite sure we have that in common, is more about our ability to overcome all those things that come up. Because a lot of people get thrown off by these things as you teed it up with, and get their business get derailed. But the big one for us, one of the huge ones for us was when we acquired this company, basically brought on another partner with us. And the point of this first one I'll share is really about who you partner with and people you bring into your business. So even though I'd done on a corporate level, done a lot of these things and hired lots of people, I'd never really done a business partnership. And what happened was this person was not a good fit. We didn't realize first that basically the person had the person was married, they had young kids. They basically ran off with some young fling, and it was a really bad scenario. It was a bad scenario for a lot of reasons, but one of the difficulties was the company, part of his share, because he was native Chinese. Part of his thing was he was I'm trying to see how much I'll share, but I'll be as transparent as possible. But basically, his part of the company was actually in his wife's name for some legal reasons. And so when everything blew up, right, and they both spent a lot of money getting $800 an hour attorneys here in Atlanta, it became a total mess for the company, because at this point, the company was this was a real size operation. It required, and we were international. We had operations in China and here, that we had to do like a crazy audits of the company, figure out how it was going to be divided up to create that value for the situation. So we were basically putting ourselves in a position where a personal issue, which happens to people, it's not, of course, not unheard of. That's one thing, but we didn't think through it up front, and it ended up costing all of us a lot of money for something that usually could be, a personal issue. We continue to do business, or we don't, or it has no impact. End up literally, like I said, having to be almost like a public company. We had to to go through a lot of processes. And so, that point was that caught our attention in terms of being careful who you do business with. We have a motto that we say, hey, we try to do business just with people we like and people we trust. And from there, the money will flow. But yeah, that was a pretty difficult scenario. Just a couple years in, because we were really growing fast, and it kind of caused us. It also caused us to kind of slow down. It basically changed the focus of the company for. Again, we didn't try to make a big deal of it to the employees and the team, but the reality was that was kind of our first wake up calls. As you grow, there's new challenges that we didn't expect, and how we structure operating agreements and how we do how we spell things out. Like, we were a little bit loose on those things at the time, and we learned some hard lessons there. So that's the first one I'll tee up there.
Well, let me ask you before I share a little bit of my. I guess what I wanted to lead with, ironically, has to do with business partners as well. But what would you do? Like, let's say it happened again.
Yep.
And it happened the same way. How would you have handled it differently now than how you handled it then?
Yeah. I mean, I think the one thing is we didn't realize is, like, the company being, in this case, the shares being held by the spouse was like a really bad practice. Because one thing, if the spouse was part of the business, great, but they had nothing to do with the business, and then something goes wrong, in that scenario, you should be able to. That's something in hindsight, that's somewhat predictable and controllable. That was a huge mistake, up front, allowing that structure. That's one, and I think the other one too, we try to do is we like to have a little bit more of a feeling out process now too. So, you need to have, there's always some level of risk. There's no guarantees whether you're hiring someone or doing business with someone, but it just wasn't the right person. And that's like, you're really getting married in that case. And so, differently is to have ways you could try to work together for a while in some capacity. Like, I'll give an example. Like, so Dima Kubrick and I are, we're buddies, and probably it's similar how you and I, we just haven't interacted as long, but we've interacted for a couple of years together now, and in different ways, and we've helped each other. Like, so we've never done real business partnerships together. We've done some stuff to help each other out, but I've had a period of time where I feel like, we've known each other enough that I would do something with him in the right scenario, and vice versa if it's the right situation, versus just kind of right out the bat meeting someone, kind of getting excited. It's like getting married after meeting someone for a week, or not really knowing them at all. So I think that's the big thing for me, is I like some time period on either end to go, hey, if either of us, don't, for whatever reason, it's no harm, it's no problem if it's after 3 months or whatever, we go separate ways. So I like those dynamics, because, even if things don't work out, you want, in the industry or your business dealings, as much as possible, of course, you want things to you don't want to burn bridges on either end, and try to keep those relationships as positive as possible.
But you're still open. Like, you've not completely closed the door to possibilities of being a partner with someone.
Yeah, not at all. No, it's just more about just upfront. And if you're going to do it, just how do you structure it? That makes sense. So no, I think it's like, I use the analogy, like way back when I ran a Home Depot for a couple of years as a store manager. And it was like, you could lock up every piece of product in your store to stop theft of 2%. But meanwhile, your sales would go down by like 40% because no one can get your stuff. So just the same thing with people. The upside of the partnerships is massive, right? I mean, I've done talks. I did one part of Athena's group out in, I think it was in LA. I think the theme of the thing is that, entrepreneurship is a team sport was my title of my theme there. So no, I definitely encourage people. We could have a whole separate talk on that, but just realize, there's the risk of it. I wouldn't say don't allow it to be a reason not to do it, because it can accelerate your business, and it's fun to work with cool people. Just be smart about it and understand what the structure is, and try to have like scenarios where on both ends, it's not, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work, but it's not catastrophic for either party.
Absolutely. I love the idea of joint ventures now. I think one of the weaknesses of mine in in just being an entrepreneur is, I want to say I've been burned so much by business partners. In reality, I've burned myself so much with business partners that I think my resting default is almost like a no business partner thing. But I agree with you. It is a team sport, and I should be more open-minded to the situation. With me, in one of my first, in like my first Amazon business, I partnered with somebody who was just willing to sit down and listen, that I was getting traction selling these cigar cutters online. And person had a full ride scholarship to medical school and decided to not go just to do this. So at the time, I was so unsure about entrepreneurship that this was this huge validation. It's like, oh my God, this person's going to forego medical school to partner with me. They must really believe in what I do. So that relationship was okay in the beginning, but what it did for me was and it turned into like one of my biggest failures as a business person, is that I felt that all future businesses that I start must have a minimum of like one or two additional business partners. Like it closed my mind to doing it on my own. And it's sort of, I don't know if it became a confidence thing at that point, that if I couldn't find someone to partner with me, then that meant there was something wrong with my business idea.
Interesting. Yeah.
So it was crippling for a while, but I dealt with it where business partners they're off at the gym and bulking up all day or traveling the world. I'm the one with the work ethic that's there on Christmas morning.
Yep.
Grinding away, robbing the bank account met a girl and wanted to impress her with a Lexus or something and just bought her a freaking Lexus and pulled the money out of the account, or breast implants and just like the craziest stuff.
Yeah.
Like just doing that stuff. So ironically, business partners for me was one of the, have you read a book called The Founder's Dilemma by Noah Wasserman?
I know of the book. I have not read that yet. Yeah.
Oh man, pulled over several times with chills. I was like, this person's talking about me, but it talks about structuring. I feel like you had a big advantage in that, or maybe, asking, do you feel like you had a big advantage in structuring partnerships from experience in corporate America prior?
A little bit, but it's still not completely, because it's still different. Because those structures were in place. Or private equity, I had my little share, so I understood the concept of it, or more the value of the value of the asset and growing the business and partnership. But with the details of it, I know there's another book I think called Slicing Pie, which is pretty good.
Very good.
Yeah, you familiar with it? But so yeah, no, I think it is a little bit of an art and a science with that stuff anyway. So, and my partners told me, we talked about, when the business is struggling, you really get, a feel. I think I said one time with your partners how things are. He's like, yeah, you get even the true colors really come out when you have a lot of success, in some ways, bad ways. He's like, when you have a lot of success, you can really see what that can do and how people handle that as well too within the partnership. So
what was the bouncing back like after this, what you went through? Like how badly did it affect sales? Did you question whether you should be doing this period?
Yeah, it is something I think we're good at. And my partner, Jason, was always good at. He's like, I think we both had a comment about just moving forward and not trying to, get emotional about it. And as we talk about a couple other setbacks, I think it's the similar theme. Like, we've had worse. We've had, we'll talk about in a minute. Sure. Like, we've had accounts shut down, right? So a lot of money sitting there and you're totally out of business, and we don't freak out about it as a point. I think I was an Army officer early in my career. And it's a little bit of that, with challenges, not getting overwhelmed by it. So it's more about, how do we solve this? How do we move forward? What's done is done. But it did slow us down from new initiatives and launching products. And like, it's kind of like a divorce, when someone's going through a divorce personally, it stops you from moving forward in certain things. So like, we were flat, we had a period, we were definitely flat in sales versus, our other trajectory. And it took us a little while before we could start hiring people. And there's some reasons too. We didn't want to, we wanted to get this thing settled and behind us before we kind of moved on. But it was, we got past it and grew. And that brand today became that brand initially, now is actually technically our biggest brand that we have.
Oh, that's what I was going to ask. Like, does the brand still exist?
Yeah, it's good. So we had like these two brands, even though they're like, if you're in the warehouse, it's like this side of the warehouse is the one brand and the other side is the other brand. For the most part, we've got some other pet supplies and fitness and other things, but the one brand that originally came, it's like a little bit more female friendly with the design, and it's tended to do a little bit better. Like both did pretty well, but that brand did a little stronger over time, the way it grew and developed. So yeah, no, it was, again, we definitely moved past it, and we got behind it, and that, that relationship went away and we just moved forward.
So how long, where are you at in your Amazon selling journey at this point? Like how many years in before you start picking back up and this is behind you?
Yeah. So this is like in year 3, I think. So, and it was about a 6-month issue, I'd say, because there was a process with the, with the person on the personal side with their own splitting up, and even our sales team trying to help the situation and help because these people were friends as well too, but just trying to help them personally. And then, again, having this unfortunate complexity with the business. Yeah, it was about 6 months. But yeah, we picked up after that, and we were dealing with 100 other challenges always in the business at any time operationally that you're working through. But that was a big one structurally that we got past.
So you're at your 4-year mark. This goes behind you. When does and I think, because we could probably go on all day long talking about these failures, but like, when is give us the next big one, or that you feel like you could share and that there was lessons learned from?
Yeah, I'll give you one that's a little more kind of, I'll call that one on the people side. So it's like, hey, that's really important. Make sure for anyone, I'm sure both of us have shared the similar advice. Just, be smart. Don't let it not allow you to, move forward. I totally relate. Don't get gun shy because of it. Just understand and try to have some feeling out process. I'll give one on the product side. Trying to remember the year of this because it all blends together. Maybe 2015. I'm trying to think of the year where the Segway, the little scooters became really hot.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So in my neighborhood, our little neighborhood next door, my son, I think at the time he may have been like 9 years old at the time. Was it 7 years ago, something like that. So I saw he was up on the tennis court. He came back, and we met him up there, and there was a little boy who had one of these little scooters. This was before anyone had really heard of them or knew of them really in the US. And my wife was like, man, that thing's cool. Or we're like, yeah, that's gonna be cool. And we started seeing a little bit of discussion around these things. And there was some talk, I think Mark Cuban was trying to trademark these. He had a version, or he thought he had a patent or something. And so I talked to my partner over like a glass of wine at night at his back deck. And I was like, I think this thing's going to be the hot item this coming year. And this was like this might've been like in April or something. And so a little before Christmas, or way before Christmas. And so he did some more research. We checked these things out. We're like, these things could be really interesting. So the biggest issue we found with the product, because we always try to find what's the issue with the product that we can improve upon. And so through our research, quickly we'd realize that the issue with these things was the batteries. A lot of the batteries are crappy on these things. And so they didn't last long. And so my partner flew over to China and spent a lot of time at the different factories, going factory to factory to try to see if we could find like a really good battery to make these things work. So that was all good. Where the failure part came in was we got really excited about this opportunity and the products. And so we went really aggressive in terms of our investment in the products. So, it wasn't multiple, it was multi-7-figure investment up front. So I know we had over 7 figures in inventory on its way. And it was in a port in LA, and Amazon, banned the product. They shut it down. Well, right as our product got to port. So it was a lesson for us that, which it's interesting. We're usually pretty good about this, and we're definitely good about it. Even when you have the capital and everything else to be smart, we kind of broke our own rule, which is to don't go crazy with capital and test things initially. And so we went so heavy. And so that product, and some of you guys probably remember, there were stories of these things catching on fire and all these things. And even though our product didn't have that issue, it was a deal breaker because you couldn't sell them on Amazon. And so we were, and the item was frozen. So we couldn't get access to it for a while. So yeah, that was an example of just really, we took a cash hit. Again, it wasn't fatal for us because, their business was big enough, but it definitely was like a big mistake that we wasted a bunch of capital that, just something, we stuff can happen and we didn't think through that one could potentially happen.
You still have scooters?
We don't sell them actively. It's funny. We have them over in the warehouse, play around on them. And it was funny that Halloween, we were one of the only ones that had my neighbor. We had them at the houses. So that Halloween, people would come to our house to buy them from us because they're like, we heard you have these things. So we had a bunch of them. All our kids were cruising around on them. But we sold through a lot of them through other channels over time. So we sold them through eBay and other channels, but we don't actively sell those. I know other people like in China, you would see them all over the place, right? It was kind of like the high end version of the fidget spinner at one point, so.
As soon as you mentioned that product, I'm like, oh, like yeah. I remember hearing about it. Okay. I wasn't involved in any of the sourcing of it. Taking a step back though, you take your business partner at the time, still your business partner. Yes.
Yeah.
You guys go on the back deck and you say you do this over wine. Mine's more of like Blue Long Islands or Old Fashions at Flanagan's. But so you go on the back deck with wine. Did it take a lot of convincing? I'm asking because this thing ultimately blows up. So if you're the one that like,
yeah, I felt a little, like in our warehouse for even just a couple of years ago, we had a huge stack of them just sitting there, right? Just like, I'd be like, ooh, I remember. That's painful to look at that. But
does it get referenced kind of like when you have another idea? It's like, remember the scooters?
Yeah. I give Jason credit because, and the ideas and the partners too, there's no real blame around it. So there's not like, oh, that was your fault. It was like, because we have plenty of other ideas. Again, we could, like we said, we could do this a long time. We had even a bigger one. I'm not going to go into it details. We had a rifle scope business that he wanted to get into with some other partners. He had Chinese friends he plays soccer with here in Atlanta, a whole team, a big investment into that. I didn't really, this was like a side deal. We had like a 6-person team in the warehouse and didn't understand I think it was called Japan Optics or something. And they don't realize in the US, like there's some, like in that community, the Japanese and Pearl Harbor, there's some lessons learned there, but similar story, but it's like you have a lot of inventory, but that was even worse because there was a team built but I wasn't directly involved in that. So, but in this area with the scooters, it was, oh, well, geez, we didn't expect it to get shut down as a product. But the mistake still was like, we could have been smarter in what we invested in the front end. And so that was, that's something we've put through in our other products. Like, hey, even if we get really excited about something, because part of the thing was to say, hey, this is going to be a home run. And so we wanted to go really big for the holidays, but even so, like just find the right balance. Like don't spend $30,000 if you only need to spend, $10,000 initially. And this of course was a lot more than that. But we've definitely applied that. At other times we've gotten excited about something where like, and sometimes you leave some money on the table because you're not as aggressive, but we just try to find, manage that risk. So don't get overly excited about opportunities either.
Back when eBay was the thing, like more than Amazon, I had all my eggs there doing really, really good, putting up, I think we're at 12 million a year on sales on eBay, which is a lot for eBay. And I got a hold of 3 products to resell randomly, and they were scopes.
Yeah.
And I did the research. Back then it was like Blackthorn, or it was like some software that you could use on eBay to do good product research and see what the market value of this was. And I saw that I would sell this product in like 3 months and I would make like 1,000% profit. So I got a sale within like the first week. Mind you, this scopes are completely unrelated to anything that I sell.
Yep.
And got a sale like in the first week. It was international. I shipped it. My entire account got suspended. Apparently these scopes were, I don't know if military grade is the right term in this other country.
Yeah.
But I was basically shipping arms according to them. And that was on me to know that. I was at that time, I was figuring out how to do a commercial invoice and how to send an international shipment with postage and all that stuff. I didn't know I had to know what I was legally allowed to ship to other countries. It was a learning lesson. That's not one of my like major failures, but
yeah,
at Scopes, I was like, oh boy.
Yeah, totally. That was, again, I wasn't as invested in that business much, but you'll have people come to us. I'm sure come to, hey, can we partner together on this product idea? Can we do that? And there's been other ones we've had success with, like we do some pet supplies. That was a partnership with like the little poop bags through it. But yeah, that was similar, is like not knowing the market, not really like realizing, some of the challenges with it. But I think that product ended up getting sold off on eBay and some other spots to try to recoup. But I didn't really have an investment in that product.
Like we said earlier, we could go on and on with these failures, but what for the beginner to intermediate seller, anything from I want to start selling on Amazon, been selling for a year, to intermediate, and I'm saying not advanced because I'm assuming if you're an advanced seller and you're calling yourself an advanced seller, that you've already got this down pat and that's how you got there. But for the beginner intermediate seller on Amazon that wants to start selling Amazon, what advice would you give them surrounding failure?
Yeah. So I think my advice is, I've thought about this and I feel like I've lived this myself too, and I think it applies to just entrepreneurship, not even specific to Amazon, but of course, within the Amazon game is I think a lot of people's minds are sometimes looking for reasons to why this won't work, or to why to quit, or why to give up. And I've been guilty of that myself too. And so, over the years, you recognize if you're in Amazon, every year in Amazon specifically, we'll use that. There's going to be multiple times during the year where there's going to be something, a headline that people are going to think, oh, well, now it's no longer an opportunity. Right. And so, for example, like reviews is always the one. I remember, I think it was like 2015, or, it was like, there was sites like, I don't know, I love reviews, or let's just buy your reviews. And it was like within the terms of service, as long as there was like the little comment that would say, I put this review for a fair exchange, or blah, blah, blah. You remember whatever the phrase, which was it was silly because obviously they were paid reviews. And then Amazon put an end to that. And a lot of people had like this reaction, like, oh no, this is terrible. I can't get reviews now. So there's a lot of those things constantly that can come up with the business, both at the macro level with Amazon, or more with yourself. It could be the stuff we're talking about with a partner, or with a reason why. And so, I think you kind of teed it up at the beginning of the conversation, is just understand that is entrepreneurship. I've seen the chart where it's like, I'm amazing, I'm terrible, I'm good. And it goes up and up, but as long as it's kind of trending up over time, you're fine. And so, with that, I'm a believer of just finding people to help you along the journey, extend, whether it's the business partner, whether it's communities, right? And so I do believe you need help, and that can be in different ways. One of the things I've told people is like, you and I spoke at that event with Dima. That community can be of people like you, or it can be in different ways. In Dima's case, there was a lot of people that were Russian and Ukrainian, right, from his community. Not all of them. I spoke at an event up in New Jersey, the Hasidic Jew community, right? Very, very tight group of people, but they're kind of helping each other. In China, there's really big communities of people. So it doesn't have to be that way, but then there's also entrepreneurship communities. You have a huge community, right? Both in South Florida and across the country. But I do think that can help people mentally get through those hurdles. If you're doing it by yourself, I think you're more likely to quit, or to kind of go down a path of kind of almost self-destruction at some point. So yeah, that's my biggest one, I think, for anyone trying to make the journey.
And amen to that. I couldn't have said that better. Speaking of communities, and what for people listening to this, shockingly, we have a small army of people that listen to this show, but for people listening to this, so far you've been one of my favorite guests. No offense to any other guests on the show to have on the show. As a matter of fact, I've heard you on podcasts in the past, and that was part of the inspiration for me starting a podcast. So for people listening to the show that want to really step up their Amazon game, and be part of a community. They're not exclusive. Like we both have communities. Like
right,
you can't have enough.
Not
right?
Zero sum.
Right. This is not a zero sum game, but you have an amazing community actually, and it's at like a steal. Am I right? It's like $7 a month, and it's high quality too.
Yeah. So it's something. Yeah, I mean, you've done it. I think a great job with this. We do high end coaching and all that kind of stuff. But what I've thought through some of the time through Clubhouse and everything else is like, hey, how can you make things more accessible? And you probably, you thought of this approach before I did. I realized it's really, there's so many. I think we got 26,000 people in the Facebook group, and we've done this, that, and the other. But I'm like, there's so many people we haven't been able to help because it's great if people can invest, 10 grand into high end coaching or more. But so yeah, the amzinsiders.club is something we did recently. It's $7. We've got a group chat on WhatsApp. There's a membership area. We do weekly trainings in that on Amazon, but also, something I realized through doing all this the last 5 years, I'm sure the same way, is every time you have to do this stuff, you also learn other skills about, how to do podcasts, how to do sales funnels, there's a lot of crossover with how to drive traffic. Whether it's a digital product or a physical product. So that's something unique we're doing in there, and sharing things like, the sales funnels and all of that. So yeah, that's, we put in that amount, like you said, the $7 doesn't, it's about the cost of a cup of coffee, doesn't mean anything, but what I found is, I love the phrase or people say, when people pay, they pay attention. So we put in kind of the smallest barrier we could, but we know the people that, take the minute to join are people that have some level of motivation, and we're happy to help. So yeah, that is it.
So people can find it at amzinsiders.club.club. And if you mentioned you heard this on the show, Carlos, he'll charge you double. So no.
Yeah, but amzinsiders.club is fine. I know some people, people message, on Instagram. It's just my name, JamieDavidson.official. Just in general, if people want to reach out as well too. So that's no problem. Happy to help.
Absolutely. I might join in there. People get access to you too, or is it only your team, or is it both?
Yeah, no, it's I'm in there. It's like right now we've got the group chat. Well, I think it goes up to so many people. Then we may have to, I don't know if I'll have to move to Telegram or what. And so I'm seeing how it works, but yeah, no, it's on WhatsApp. I've got the chat right here on WhatsApp, and it, it's like you won't be able to see it on there, but basically I have a little chat, and there's bunch of people, and basically I'll give people a heads up too if I go live on Clubhouse, or if we're going to do a live training that night, I can just drop the link or drop a voice message and say, hey, if you guys want to come check this out, or it's also just connecting, like, hey, I'm going to this event and Carlos is going to be there. I'm going to Carlos's event. Let people kind of just follow the things that I'm doing, because sometimes I realize that if people don't realize what you're doing at times. So it's a good way for me to kind of push out and people that want to, try to follow the journey and replicate some of the things that we do.
You're definitely a wealth of information. I think it's a heck of a deal. I think anybody listening to this should definitely take advantage of that. You mentioned some ways to contact you. I don't know if any of those are your preferred methods, so somebody listening to the show can reach out to you. Was it Instagram?
Yeah, Instagram is just JamieDavidson.official, which is fine. Again, happy to, it's like a DM. Is the easiest way. I used to use Facebook more, but I think now Instagram is probably the primary method to connect. Yeah.
Absolutely. And the thing I ask everybody on the show, I'm definitely curious to hear what your answer is going to be. What is your favorite book and why?
Yeah, I mean, the answer is I'll give you one, but I'll slip in a second just because they're on both topics. We talked about people. We talked about we were talking product, but really it's how to profit. But there's a book. It's Profit First is a mantra we run our company by. I was going to see if I get the
Michael Michalowicz.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. Michael Michalowicz for that book. I love that because of the focus and create some discipline in terms of, a lot of people run these businesses in Amazon and you go, oh, I did $1 million in sales. I did $1 million, but it's like, oh, we broke even profit. And so just having an understanding how you can do that and kind of some ways carve out that almost into another account at times, a set of money to make sure that and actually I heard you say this on a podcast, like, or I think, are we making money or are we just moving money? is something I heard, which I think you'd heard.
Yeah.
And that really resonated with me. It's so true. Right. So, but yeah, I love that book for that. The second one is the Who book we referenced. I know our friend Ashley Thompson referred to it. Who is a book all about structures and systems for hiring people, but it's like literally like a step-by-step. We literally follow the exact questions in that book. I know Ashley Thompson, who's a 9-figure seller as well, shared the same thing. We actually have a very similar process, but we just copy that process from Who. So that profit first is probably the one I'd highlight first. But as you get into like building a team, even though if it's virtual or whatever else, don't take that for granted. You need to have processes around that as well.
Amen to that. Profit first. I love. It's been an absolute nightmare for me today to implement. And I think I just need to do the right thing and hire somebody that's trained in profit first to go ahead and implement these things and not be, boneheaded about it. But the other one, Who, I've not read. I'm going to grab it right after the show. I look forward to reading it, and I'll follow up with you on it.
Oh, awesome. Cool. Yeah. You'll like it. Like the interview, the questions to ask, and even if you don't do it perfectly, but you literally can have, there's definitely some good ones there to vet your talent in a good way. So both on that and to sell people to convince them why you're a good team to join as well too. So
love it, man. Thank you so much for your time, for coming on the show. Means a lot. I look forward to hearing you on podcasts in the future, and I look forward to doing a lot of cool collaborations. If you're ever in Miami, my group and I would love to impose on your time for a presentation while you're down here in chilly Miami. Even if we have to take care of the plane and the Airbnb, it'd be really nice to get you down here and hang out. So we'll be in touch on that, and we'll talk soon.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Carlos. Really, really appreciate it. It was a lot of fun.
It was fun sharing this episode with you. If you found value in what you've heard, please show your love with a subscribe, rate, and review of the show. Until next time.